I want to welcome everyone to the fifth episode of the Crypto Subscription Show, the podcast where we invite founders of the subscription-based crypto companies and roast them on their business model and their view on the future of the crypto market. Today we have an outstanding guest, the founder of Chainstack, Eugene. Eugene, please introduce yourself and briefly overview what Chainstack is.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Eugene, CTO and founder at Chainstack. Chainstack is the leading Web3 infrastructure provider. We empowering dApps of all sizes with our fast, reliable, and affordable infrastructure. What we do is basically we provide you read and write access to blockchain data across 25 plus chains. Of course, all the usual suspects such as Ethereum and all the most popular L2s, but also Solana, Aptos, and more. So we basically provide access to all these blockchains, starting from free plan that is very nice for those who are just starting the journey in Web3 apps development, and up to large enterprises such as Chainlink, Trust Wallet, Layer Zero, and many others that are our partners and customers.
That's an outstanding list of the partners that you have mentioned. Very, very big names. And we'll be really glad to know what is the story behind the Chainstack, the origin, what inspired you to found it.
Yeah, the story is pretty straightforward, actually. I was originally doing engineering and research in different software companies, and at some point I was working in a company called Acronis, which is quite well-known data protection and security company, and it was year 2015, and we were thinking about working with the blockchain, and because it's immutable storage, so we were thinking, okay, data protection, immutable storage sounds like it makes sense. And it was just after Ethereum came out, and everybody were really excited about the programmability aspect of it, and so we started looking into it, and at some point we started working on a solution called Acronis Notary, which integrated a blockchain in it. We basically were time-stamping objects in the storage to blockchain, so that there is an immutable proof that this object was created at this point of time, and you could later prove it and show a certificate. And we started working with exactly what I mentioned before. What is our value proposition in Chainstack? We started working with all these blockchain nodes in order to write transactions into the blockchain, read them, and it was a horrible experience. And so we realized that there will be a huge demand for this kind of APIs, because it's basically very similar to cloud. Everybody started running their own service in the early days, and later realized that in order to run applications on scale, you need to have some more robust, geographically distributed, reliable solutions that are managed by professionals. So we decided to go into it and basically become one of the first providers in the space to allow people get this read and write access as a cloud solution for all the popular blockchains where apps are being built. And that's pretty much how it started. We were looking into solving our own problem that we hit because we had to switch between different clients, like Geth and Parity, and when Geth was not working, we failed over on Parity and vice versa, and it was just super bad at that early days. I assume now, especially in Ethereum, I would say it's much better if you want self-host a node and have this built in-house. But you have now tens or sometimes hundreds of chains, and you need to be able to operate them all with like high uptime, reliability, and performance. And that's where we are currently. So we started solving our own problem, but then it sort of unexpectedly grew to a separate business, which is quite successful.
That's a wonderful journey. What year it was?
It was we started looking into this solution in this company I mentioned, Acronis, in 2015. So I think that we basically released it around year 2017, and Chainstack was started around 2018. I think we officially started the company year 2018, and it went to market in year after in 2019.
So I would say, Eugene, you are an OG in the
Yeah,
market.
sort of. Yeah, I'm pretty old. Yes.
As you have mentioned, currently, they're running node infrastructure for Ethereum is not a problem, as there are many blockchain infrastructure providers. What sets Chainlink apart from them?
Chainlink is not infrastructure
Sorry,
provider.
Oh, you
It's
mentioned
fine.
Chainlink, and my
I know,
brain.
I know, I
Correct.
know.
Yeah,
It's a
sorry,
very typical.
Chainstack.
It's a very typical pattern. But for me, it's a pleasure to be, kind of mixed with with one of our biggest partners. So I'm happy that people usually because in 2018 when we started, people were not really original with the naming of their projects. So, this combination of words, chain and stack, I wouldn't say it's very original. It's kind of self-explanatory, which is good. But also people were giving all sorts of names, like chain, stack, chain link, block stack. And so a bunch of such companies, appeared at this point of time.
And
So
adding
it's quite
bit
funny.
to the name
Yes,
as
yes,
was very popular as
exactly,
well at the moment.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so sorry for that.
no problem. Basically, we are one of the, I would say, three leading providers on the market currently, together with Alchemy and QuickNode. There are a lot of other smaller providers, but we basically are in this top tier league. So what separates us from these competitors that we usually look at is unbeatable price performance ratio. So we offer the best performance, the best reliability for the best price, and this is a big differentiator for us and our customers, and that's what they love. Of course, there are some other, more nuanced differentiators, such as, we support really big number of chains and with a very high, reliability. We support customizations on our services. So, for instance, we have a service which is quite unique called dedicated nodes. Since the beginning of our journey, we ran dedicated nodes for our customers. So if they wanted their own node on dedicated hardware, we were able to provide it to them in various regions and various clouds. And so with these dedicated nodes, we offer a lot of customizations in terms of networking, in terms of tuning the node, tuning the resources, and so on and so forth. So that really sets us apart. For example, if you ask, Alchemy, can you guys please, tune this flag on the node? Highly likely they will not be able to do so because they are focused more on the API side of things. We of course have API, which is elastic as well. We call it global elastic nodes, but we also offer this dedicated node service, which feature-wise really sets us apart because this is quite unique service on the market. But really, for majority of our customers, it's about price-performance ratio, which we are very proud of, and we think we deliver the best value to our customers among all other providers.
And for people unfamiliar, running a dedicated node, what could be the use case where people need to customize their, node
Right.
infrastructure?
So people want to run dedicated node in several scenarios. So one scenario would be trading, for example. So let's say you want to be closer to, I don't know, like L2 sequencer, or you want to be closer to validator nodes because you want your transactions to go in faster. And so, for instance, you want to run like some, BNB chain node in Tokyo, for example. This is quite unique value proposition, and you can do it easily with Chainstack. Another example would, and this is also related to proximity to your own servers. For example, you run a dApp, and or you have maybe a lot of customers in certain region, So this is related to proximity and the choice of deployment for the node in terms of the data center and the cloud. Also, another big win for dedicated nodes is when you do something really heavy on the data side. So, for example, you want to backfill your own internal, database with Web3 data, and it's very intense operation. Usually requires, days and a lot of, resources to perform through the nodes, and you don't really want to be limited by number of requests that API providers give you, because your costs will go through the roof like second day you run this operation. So in order to get all the data from the blockchain, it takes, in Ethereum case, it might take a few days. In, faster chains, it can take months in some cases. And so you don't want your bill to go crazy. And so it's a typical scenario when people buy dedicated nodes, because they basically, buy it for a month or two, then they backfill the database, they pay very low price compared to what they would pay in API scenario, and they're very happy. Why people customize dedicated nodes? Again, maybe they have some, we had some customers that want to run something like custom tracing on dedicated nodes that they developed themselves, or maybe they just want to change flags for their own, trading purposes on the node that are not standard, and so on and so forth. And these are some of the, examples of customization on the node side.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, and why people will choose this over the common Elastic solution, which you have mentioned.
Yep.
You also said, Eugene, that Chainstack supports a huge amount of chains, and you've mentioned a lot of different, products, hosting and storage, and all of that. And how do you plan your roadmap and define which new products and which new chains you would like to support next?
Right. So I would say we, of course, crypto is a nascent industry, even though we are on the market for, over a decade, but it's still very new. So I don't think that it's, as an industry, realized itself very much. So, the most exciting times are ahead of us, I believe. And so really there is no, leader in this market that is absolute, number one and will stay there for, for many years. So I think we're still in heavy exploratory phase in terms of, core infrastructure such as chains and other pieces of infrastructure that, like, who's going to be the leader. And so we basically invest time into understanding, the fundamentals of all of these chains, and try to see whether there's, strong adoption team behind each chain, and like whether there's a strong roadmap to to generate a lot of interest from end users, because what we are focusing on is servicing developers so that they can build the best, the most reliable, the most snappy apps for the users. But to begin with, we need to have users that will use these apps, so that we have a community of developers building apps. So we are mostly looking into adoption. So I'm personally interested in adoption at this point, much more than technology. For example, when we started, I was personally very interested in consensus mechanisms and other nitty-gritty technical details about the chain. At this point, I'm super interested in like adoption metrics of a chain. And when we look at the chain, we try to understand, okay, does it have a chance to onboard next 100 million users or something like that. So that's basically our criteria. This year, we are not going crazy to add new chains, for example. So we are being quite cautious not to invest time into supporting as many chains as we can, because we already have a very, very solid portfolio. I think we support all the leading chains already as of today. And so for us currently, it's about making a good decision on what are the chains to add next, to focus our resources on the best possible options in terms of adoption.
Yeah, adding to that, magic orb time, what is your personal take on the future of chains from the developer perspective? And what do you currently see as growing trends?
It's a great question. Of course, I'm not trying to give any advice, and perhaps this view also doesn't represent necessarily a Chainstack's view on the situation.
Yeah, it's your personal question.
Yeah, but my personal take is that I think this multi-chain future is here to stay. To begin with, this has been our thesis from day one when we started. So we believed heavily in multi-chain, multi-cloud, everything, with the multi in it. When we started, building our first materials, it was always about like multi-chain, multi-cloud. And I remind you, it was year 2018. So absolutely nobody at that point thought about multi-chain, because there was only, on the public chain side, there was pretty much, Ethereum, Bitcoin, And then there was a bunch of enterprise blockchain initiatives from from different big companies in Fortune 500 mostly. So, but we kind of grasped this idea that there will be no one winning chain, and so we always believed in the multi-chain future. I think at this point it went a little bit out of hand. So I personally think we have too many chains at this point, but I assume that it's part of exploration of the market. Like, what if we have too many chains? It means there are market dynamics that allow these chains to exist. There's venture capital that is interested to invest into more chains because they can make bigger bets in the future in terms of platform adoption versus apps adoption. But personally, I think we're in the moment where we have too many chains, and I expect this, number to go down over time in terms of used chains, because I don't believe we really need, hundreds of chains to transact upon. Maybe we need 5, maybe we need 10, and the rest, actually, if we transact on the rest of the chains, we should not even, know that we're transacting on these chains. So I believe there should be like a handful of chains that we know that we transact on and we consciously transact upon. And maybe there are hundreds of smaller chains that we transact on, but we do not even think and know that we're actually transacting on some chain. It's just built in some app. And this app doesn't necessarily even tell us that it's on the blockchain, but we are somewhere there, under the hood. There are some transactions that are going on chain, but we are not even aware of this. So that's kind of my thesis on this multi-chain future. It's definitely there to stay, but there will be a handful of giant chains that have heavy adoption, and we are actually aware of the brand names of these chains, if you can say so. Like, that you are transacting on Ethereum, you are going on the marketplace and you sell something like your asset that it's on Ethereum, and for the rest of the apps there will be some built-in chains, and we will not know the names of them because there's no necessity to even know like how these chains are called.
Yeah, I've heard the quote that the best UX Web3 experience is that when you don't know that you're in Web3.
Yeah, precisely.
And what about, Tom? What do you think about that? Do we support it?
I'm mega bullish on Tone, to be honest, for a simple fact that it's purely product driven. Because I know a little bit about Telegram, and I've been following Telegram development since the early days, and so I know the approach that Telegram team and people around have, and they are laser focused, I would say, on adoption and on actual users and actual user scenarios, and so I'm super interested in Tone ecosystem. We're gonna support Tone very soon. So I'm dropping some alpha here because this hasn't been publicly announced yet. So we're gonna be announcing our support in the next month. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward into working with Tone builders. We do our own research, and we see like enormous demand from people to build applications on Tone, and we see like gigantic problems for this and showstoppers. There is no tools, there is no reliable APIs, so we intend to fill in this gap and become #1 API provider on Tone.
Yeah, that's definitely something I heard from the developers on Ton. First of all, that the competition for some DeFi products is not that big, and if you try to build something, you encounter a lot of lack of a different infrastructural parts.
Yep,
there.
exactly. Well, this is the basically the downside of being hyper focused on users versus developers. But I think it's better than being hyper focused on developers rather than users, because it's I would say that it's easier to build technical infrastructure versus getting actual traction from users to your app. So it's easy to fix the technology, but it's hard to fix product market fit and like whether you have genuine interest from people to use your apps. So I think that it's and that's exactly where we sit. So we basically solve these problems for developers, and we see this demand, and so we're eager to solve these issues for developers, and that's what we're doing. And here we are. In a few months, we have this problem solved.
Exactly. the majority of startups fail because they cannot, onboard customers, not because they cannot deliver the product.
Exactly.
One more question to continue about chains. What is your take on app chains? I see that they
I
can
have very
opt.
special. I have very
Yeah.
special take on app chains. Why? Because I didn't mention this, but Chainstack, when we started, was a private blockchain hosting company, uh,
Wow.
largely. So we basically, our first product, we were always like super, again, we were open towards a majority, like the plurality of chains overall over time. And so we were on both sides. I mean, we were interested in public chains as well as the private chains, enterprise blockchains, and so on and so forth. And in year 2018, now it's a little bit of fad already, but in the year 2018-19, there was a huge, hype about enterprise blockchains, and that IBM released like large platforms and projects with Maersk and other, logistic companies and finance companies, and there was like a lot of movement towards, let's put stuff that enterprises generate on chain and let them exchange on chain. And so Chainstack was originally mostly doing this. So we were hosting private networks for such companies. And then when we realized, like after year and a half of doing this, that the market is super small, and most of the projects are just POCs, and then they don't progress further towards production. Then we focused on the public blockchain market, and that was very good timing, because that was beginning of 2021, I believe, and that's when Polygon launched, and that's when like BNB chain launched and other L2s launched, and there was a lot of interest from developers and users alike to do things on chain, and hence we just mostly forgot about our enterprise blockchain story, and we focused solely on the public chains. So now with app chains, I see sort of a reincarnation of this old idea of private chains and sovereign chains. And so I have, my personal PTSD towards it. And while I understand the argument about, separate block space and, application-specific chains, I'm personally being very careful to be bullish on this thesis, because, again, I think we have more chains than users at this point. And so, I believe that this technology has a certain place, but I don't make a very strong bet on app chains at the moment that they're gonna be big, and that we're gonna need thousands of chains, because first I think we need to see the interest from end users to come, and then the technology piece, as I mentioned, can be solved. So that's my take on app chains, but I would say it's a bit biased by my prior experience, but I'm very positive towards app chains in general. I'm just quite cautious, because I've done this sort of mistake in the beginning of our journey when we focused on private sovereign chains, and I want to make sure that we make the right decisions. So while being generally positive, I'm being also quite cautious on app chain thesis myself.
Yeah, sorry to say that, but saying that having a PTSD from app chains is quite hilarious.
Yeah. Yes.
Continuing with and finishing the magic orb time, what challenges do you foresee for blockchain adoption? Speaking about adoption in the coming years, and how Chainstack is preparing to address them in
Right.
advance.
So yeah. So I think I've touched upon this topic largely. So we need to find this. I wouldn't even say like use cases, because in fact, DeFi is a great use case for blockchains. For example, ownership is a great use case. For example, like ticketing is a great use case. For example, for blockchains, like I try to buy tickets to different shows, including some of the popular ones, and it's super painful experience in Web 2. Like there's literally no way to transfer tickets securely from one person to another. There are some special sites where you can do that, but they're all semi-shady. Before using them, you need to go to Reddit to double check whether this site is scam or not. And in the result, it's not scam, but then it's like just a bunch of middlemen, and so it's clearly suboptimal. So there are certain use cases that were materialized largely, like DeFi. I strongly believe in DeFi in general. I think we just need to give better access to DeFi to normal people, to majority of people, because now the adoption rates are so tiny because it's very hard to use. Honestly, like we are like the OGs in crypto. We are used to Uniswap interface, which is generally very very sleek, and it's pink and it's nice and it's welcoming, and it looks really simple for us once we're here for like 10 years or so. But believe me, like when people try to get into this ecosystem from scratch, it looks super weird to them. Everything is super strange. All these names, like even Uniswap, it sounds really strange. And like I literally try, because I try to dog food crypto with my friends and family and people around. So when we need to split the bills, I send people like USDT on Telegram, or I send them like USDC on Coinbase wallet or something like that. So I try to dog food all the time. And when I try to onboard people, it's really awkward these days because like we start the discussion, okay, how do I use this? And say, oh, you need to install a wallet. And they say, oh, cool. So which application should I install? And then I started to think, okay, what's the most user-friendly wallet like on the market? Like I wouldn't, suggest people to install MetaMask, for example, because it's a bit clunky, and again, it's familiar for us as crypto natives. But I'm just trying to understand, okay, what's the most user-friendly, easy to use wallet today? And then I start to, okay, you guys need to install like Rabi wallet because it sounds, like very nice UI, very nice team. Like Rabi and Debunk, I think are the best teams. And then like they install Rabi wallet, and then I start to do certain things, and then I figure out, oh, you cannot add like a custom RPC endpoint of a certain network where we want to transact. Okay, no go. Let's move on. So what else we can do? Okay, let's install Rainbow Wallet. And like they're like, what? Like Rainbow Wallet? Like why would my financial app be called Rainbow Wallet? And then I kind of I share this experience. Like if I was about to onboard on some great new financial journey, would I want to use Rainbow Wallet as my core wallet? It sounds really strange to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit old. Maybe this 15-year-old, 12-year-old guys, they say, oh, Rainbow Wallet is a great way to store your coins and your dollars or whatever it is. But yeah, I think largely we need to make easier entrance to existing scenarios that realize themselves, like DeFi, for example. We need to have just like one click deposit apps that will just not need any like steps to get to it. Like you have Revolut, Wise. They're pretty straightforward applications, and you don't have to store any like seed phrases anywhere, and so it just works. And the second, of course, we need to continue. I think we need to fight for more use cases for blockchain. Like this example with tickets, I think it's pretty obvious that it's a good fit, but we have never seen like good, massive, adopted apps that would help you to buy tickets, transfer tickets for events, and so on and so forth. And this industry is 100% ripe for disruption. Of course, there are incumbents that don't want crypto to solve this because otherwise they would lose the business, etc. So, but I think we should continue fighting for this like compelling use cases for crypto and have more use cases that make sense. I'm a strong believer that not everything should be on the blockchain to the extent we don't need to put all our social media data on the blockchain. It makes no sense. Like there should be no Facebook on the blockchain, this kind of stuff. But some use cases like ticketing, for example, it's just my personal pain as well. Like whenever I want to buy a ticket to transfer a ticket, it's so bad. So yeah, we need to provide easy access to existing tools and scenarios, and we need to fight for more scenarios.
Yeah, interesting points. For my personal experience, trying to onboard people to crypto, the seed phrase was a constant showstopper because you have to somehow remember 12 words, and after that, the next screen it asks you to randomly put some of them, and majority of people like, no, I haven't copied that. I thought it's like it's saved or stored somewhere else. For
Well,
them,
this
it
is
was
this is literally why I'm so excited about Tone. It's not because of new technology. It's not because it's even a new blockchain, etc. It's just because in order to use Tone these days, you don't need to install a new app, and pretty much everyone uses Telegram, and they can basically use wallet within the Telegram. And then basically you go to all the websites that support Tone and authentication through Tone, and it's one thing to authenticate. It's one library. It's standard. So you go to any website that has Tone integration, and then it's the same widget. You can use the same wallets. It's not like this crazy zoo in the EVM ecosystem where every site you go, it has different selection of wallets. And if you don't have MetaMask, you always have some sort of problem somewhere because your wallet suddenly doesn't work, or it doesn't work reliably, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean the wallet thing it sounds super simple, but it's very important, especially for sort of long tail adoption, not early adopter usage, but rather just normal person usage. So
yeah, absolutely. And also to some extent, I would argue with the social media argument. I would say that censorship resistance is still a big thing and a big use case for decentralized social networks. Luckily, we have X acquisition by Elon, and you know, before that, on the major social networks, there, there was quite a big problem of the speech suppression of broader and growing amount of different topics. So I would say, in a way,
well, it's
blockchain
not
could
it's not
solve
like
that.
I'm against social use case. I'm against putting all the data from social networks to the blockchain. This kind of super maximalist view on the blockchain that everything should happen there. Which is crazy. We shouldn't probably put photos on the blockchain or something like that. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like some super important information. Let's say, if you write a post, you can, I don't know, have a hash of this post and store the, post somewhere, etc., so that you have a trace of this post being, published, etc., etc. I don't have any objections about social use case. There definitely some fit there, but for subset of social scenario as a whole, because there's it's just so many different things, like and text and photo and videos and streaming and so on and so forth, and not all this data should be on the blockchain. That was my point.
Yeah, yeah, I completely second you for that. Basically, storing videos and streaming does not make
Yep,
any sense.
exactly.
Now, a couple of questions regarding your business model. For a B2B solution, do you think it's important to have a community, and how do you nurture one for Chainstack? I've seen you personally communicating in the Discord.
So I would say that for B2B solution, it's not crazy important to have a community if we compare with project that has a token and that does certain activity, I don't know, related to the NFT, et cetera, where community is much more important. For traditional B2B SaaS, I think it's not existential threat if you don't have a community. For such a nascent industry such as Web3, I think it's a differentiator if you have a community. By community, I mean not just some channel where people can come and ask just sort of technical support questions, because you have technical support for that, and people can write you an email, or they can chat you somewhere. But by community, I mean where people can ask questions not even necessarily related to your product, and maybe look for a gig, or maybe ask some question related to how to do this or that thing on the blockchain. We don't really, I wouldn't say we have a outstanding community at any standard. Yes, we run a bunch of communities in Discord and in Telegram primarily, where there's usually quite open discussion about things, and people are of course asking technical issues and problems about if they appear on Chainstack and around their app building experience. But what we really heavily invest in is our documentation. We try to make it super friendly. We have this developer portal at docs@chainstack.com, which has a really easy to use and friendly documentation with examples that are dynamic, and you can click through API calls and you can generate results on the fly. And there are tutorials about literally every topic you can think about on any chain. So that's basically our take on community, because we're primarily working with developers. We want to offer the most delightful developer experience on the platform, and that's how I think you basically get the hearts of the developers, by giving them the most easy to use, like developer friendly tools. And that's what we try to do with our platform, of course, but also with our documentation that we invest a lot of time in and love.
Wow, sounds great. Sounds great. So for the product like yours, I don't think there's much drama also happening, which is the case for crypto projects with token, for example, where the majority of people float in there and asking when moon and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a fun fact is that a long time ago we were thinking about, because it was year 2018, was pretty much year of ICOs together with 2017. So early days, our idea was to launch a token for Chainstack, but I'm very happy that we didn't do it, and we will never do it. So yeah,
When
but
token,
when token,
Eugene, when
yes.
token.
Yes.
And what has the strategy been for growth and market penetration for you?
So again, we've been on the market for last 5 years actively. So it changed over time, of course. Like when this crazy growth, like we've seen in 2021 with L2s, that was probably running for 18 months. Our major challenge and strategy for growth was to be able to service the incoming stream of people who wanted to use our platform. So we just basically invested all our time in that, and there was no problem with like generating demand at all. In more challenging markets, like like last year, for example, where there was no new influx of developers at this rate that we've seen before. We do all the regular things. We obviously try to improve our product most of the time, so that again it offers the most delightful experience to our customers, so that they don't need to think twice before choosing Chainstack over some other solution. And in terms of sales and marketing, of course, as a typical B2B SaaS, we do B2B sales. Of course, we use Web3 native channels, I would say, because our major customers are still Web3 native customers, even though we have some customers from Web2 and from Fortune 500, but the biggest bulk are Web3 native customers. So we go to the major events. And we do outreach to people in Telegram versus email, or or Discord, etc., or Twitter. So and for marketing, we do some interesting campaigns. We played with coupons recently, which was quite successful. We are showing off our products more and more, especially in regards to competition. So we have this amazing landing page, which is called Save on Your Infrastructure Costs, which shows exactly with the drill down into particular calls and different scenarios. If you're a DeFi app, or if you're a gaming app, or if you are depending on the scenario, there will be a breakdown of costs on Chainstack, Alchemy, and QuickNote, and we clearly show like SKU by SKU, like how better we are in terms of overall pricing. So we do quite aggressive marketing, focusing on our strength. And we explain our product really well, so that there's no second thought. Okay, how does this work? How does that work? So we want to be super clear, and we don't want to hide any details. And that's continuation of our discussion about documentation, that we heavily document everything, so that it's very clear what product offers, what it doesn't offer, so that people are not confused, so they are not irritated by the fact that they sign up for a product and it has some promise but it doesn't deliver, etc., etc. So we try to do our product marketing really well, and focus on the strength of our product, and it works for us.
I do think that the market still lacks some, creative ways of marketing the products. And that's nice that you're experimenting with that and successfully for coupons, for example. I haven't heard about that in crypto related companies. One thing you have mentioned, the Fortune 500 companies getting onboarded. Could you spell some beans around what other use cases in
Of
where,
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chainstack helped them?
Whenever we talk to such companies, and I'm talking only about production use cases, because I'm kind of not talking at all about what they experiment with, because I'm sure a lot of experimentation here and there. We just, as a business, we have to focus on things that are going in production, because that's where we can produce the most value for our customers, and that's how we can generate value for our business as well. So I'm focusing about production deployments only, and production deployments are basically all of them across enterprise use cases. About Fortune 500 use cases are about finance. And when I talk finance, I'm not talking about your latest Solana shitcoin that people launch on pub.fun. When I talk finance, I'm talking solely Bitcoin and maybe sometimes Ethereum. So we had a call with our customer last week, and they were like, "Oh, guys, we're so innovative. We like Chainstack so much. We run like Bitcoin nodes on Chainstack, but our team is like our innovation team. They're pushing the boundaries. So we're thinking about launching a solution on Ethereum, in like 2024." And we're like, "Okay, great. We'll help you with that." But that's basically where their mindshare is. So they are launching products now, but it's probably, I would say, 8 years, 6 years behind, crypto Twitter, I would say. These people, they don't take crazy bets. So they basically invest into things that work. So they see, that Bitcoin got some, serious traction, and like Ethereum is getting serious traction, and ETFs are being launched, et cetera, et cetera. So they now, okay, let's look at this, like how we can, if it's a financial organization, how we can enable trading of these assets to our customers, for example. And that has been the major, interest from such companies. Very, very, I would say, conventional interest. Nothing crazy, so I will not tell you some, cool stories how a Fortune 500 company decided to trade on Solana with with the latest shitcoin. But yeah, it's very, 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 very conventional interest into crypto. But it's getting there, which is really nice, and we see more and more interest from traditional businesses and financial organizations in particular.
Yeah, obviously they're not able to go through all of that innovative processes where the protocols go bankrupt or got hacked. So
Correct.
yeah, that's pretty obvious that they will go through the proven paths in their onboarding into
Yeah, but
Web3.
it's for us who are living and breathing Web3. Sometimes it sounds really crazy when you talk to people and they say, "Oh, our innovation, department is pushing the boundaries, so hence we will start working with Ethereum." For you, as a person in this industry, spend like 8 years there, it sounds really out of the world. But we should also understand that, and I totally understand why this is happening, and I'm really happy about this is finally happening, and people are running and launching production solutions, which is great.
Yeah, that's something you could not imagine back in 2018 that these companies will get onboarded. That will be a ETF for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. That's crazy level of adoption we have currently. And
I
with
think people dreamt about it at the time, but of course it was too fast development if it happened within the same year. So as we see, it took us like eight years to get there, or like basically like multiple years to get there. So that's actually the principle I use now in all the estimations to give when things look promising to us. Those who are living and breathing in this industry, probably we should add extra at least 5 years until we can hit some sort of major adoption curve. One of the favorite examples that I have, because I'm very passionate about payments on the blockchain, because I still believe it's a big use case also for the blockchains, is how credit card industry was developed. So the first credit card was issued in 50s, and the majority of people started transacting via credit card in 90s. So basically, it took 40 years to get to the point where people started using credit cards more than cash in the average. So if we're taking this and credit card was a great invention, and it was for consumers in particular, it was very useful almost from the start, because all the fees were on the merchant side, and it took so much time to build this like two-sided marketplace so that it made sense for everybody, and so on and so forth. So I think every time we think about, like it makes sense for traditional financial companies to go on the blockchain, let's add 5 years at least until this actually starts to happen, because in our minds, we are riding a rocket, so we think it will go there like immediately, but we should just slow down and say, okay, let's give it 5 years and let's prepare for this properly, so that we have the right solutions for these guys. For example, now none of the financial organizations want to work with us or any other company if you don't have certain level of security, if you don't have like security certifications, etc., etc. If your providers don't have security certifications, and if you haven't done a penetration testing, etc., etc., and all these things take time. So if you're a new startup and you want to sell to these enterprises, it's extremely hard. So you need to spend a couple of years at least on your own, working on your internal stuff to be ready to go to market to this organization. So at least it takes a couple of years from the providers themselves to get there. So take your time and get prepared for the big one.
Yeah, as a founder of the blockchain payment company myself, innovative one, that I feel it,
Yep.
because I'm the founder of Yoki Finance, and we are building subscription payments use case for crypto and for companies with subscription business model to start accepting the payments in crypto. And currently we're in the phase where everyone reaction is, what, is that possible? We didn't know
Yeah.
that. We thought that crypto is only for one-time payments. That sounds crazy for them that it's possible. And I believe in the coming years this use case will take over, because it have so many advantages over even traditional subscription payments, which has been a mess for many people who are still paying for streamings. They don't want to pay anymore, just because they forgot to cancel that. And some software as a service, they do have a very complicated interface when it comes to canceling the subscription. So Web3 really solves that, where you are able to just revoke your approval in the wallet, and you don't even have to go to the application or to website for the service that you have subscribed previously.
So basically what you're saying is that you can now centrally manage your subscriptions from your own, self-custodial wallet, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's pretty nice, actually. I've been thinking about subscriptions on the blockchain for a while, and there are a bunch of companies there, and we are exploring certain opportunities together. But I was always a bit skeptical on this, because not because it's a bad idea, but because people don't have crypto in the first place. So we need to have people who have crypto, so that they are interested in paying crypto for certain services. And then we need to also find merchants who are ready to accept crypto, so that people can pay their own crypto for the service. So I'm largely, I'm currently skeptical. It's just because this market is so tiny. But I haven't thought about this cool value proposition that you mentioned, that you can finally, manage all your subscriptions from one place, and you can also manage them from one place. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and the thing is that this place is not some company or something. It's like any wallet that you have. You can
Yep.
just revoke the approval to any contract. And
I think it's amazing.
yeah, that's a chicken and egg problem. And also, with major population, it's still Bitcoin is the most popular cryptocurrency, and with Bitcoin you do not have valid smart contracts where you can natively use Bitcoin still. So yeah, it's just it will be like the next step.
Right.
And speaking about payments, what are your pricing strategy and what are the most popular payment options been so far for Chainstack?
Right. So our pricing is very traditional in SaaS space. So we in our Elastic Node service, we charge for API calls. On our dedicated node service, we charge for storage and compute. So basically, you run a node, you pay certain amount, and all our billing is hourly because we want to be very flexible, very transparent. So we don't. So of course, we have subscription fees for our plans, which are monthly, but the rest is per hour. So you make calls per hour and you pay for these calls. At the end of the month, depending on how many calls you made, and same for dedicated nodes, you pay for the resources that were consumed as part of your node service, and you can stop at any time, and it will not incur any costs. So I would say it's pretty, traditional SaaS model, so nothing too crazy here. On the payment side, we are very happy to be the first provider to support a wide variety of crypto payments. Because again, I'm personally an ambassador of paying on crypto rails, and I've been doing it, for many years. And we pay salaries in crypto as well for those who want to accept crypto as a payment, which is quite a big, number of people in our team. So we are trying to dog food really intensively, payments on crypto, and hence we supported paying with crypto for Chainstack, I think more than 2 years ago already. So originally it was, maybe 10 different currencies that we supported, including, Ethereum and Bitcoin and USDC on a few networks. We are now extending this, and we just supported more than 100 new coins that you can pay on Chainstack. So I believe we have the biggest variety of payment options on the market for this type of service. And so you can pay literally with Solana shitcoins as well if you want for our service. Somehow people pay with things like Dogecoin and so on. It's not big number of payments. The majority of payments still come from stable coins, but also through native tokens as well, such as ETH and Matic and TRX on Tron and a bunch of others. So and of course, the majority of payments as of today still come from credit cards. But crypto is actually picking up. I would say in some months it can reach 20% of payments are done through crypto, which I'm very excited to see, which I think is a really big number. And so I'm interested whether this number and this proportion will increase over time.
And geographically speaking, where are the majority of your customers are based?
The majority is in Americas, and then it's very very distributed, same as our industry, same as our team. We have a lot of users in Asia. We have a lot of users in Europe, and a bunch of users everywhere. But the biggest market for us is still North America.
Yeah, and for the US, for example, it's still very complicated for companies to hold crypto on their ledger, and that is probably the reason the number is so low in terms of the crypto payments.
Well, I mean, I don't expect crypto to flip the credit cards. It's very hard to flip credit cards, I would say, because credit cards are actually so convenient if you think about it. And also, credit cards was such a cool innovation because it brought us from 0 to 1, because cash and checks was really not anyhow scalable and it's not reliable and so on and so forth. And credit cards really added a lot of value to the payments. And with blockchain, we now have much harder problem because it's previously it was physical to digital, now it's digital to digital. And how do we make it from 1 to 2 kind of experience, or at least from 1 to 1.5, so that people are incentivized to use crypto for payments versus credit cards, for example. And so I think it's really hard problem to solve. And I also think that people don't compare properly when they're talking about payments, because they always say, oh, we will revolutionize payment because banks are so clunky and they're so slow and the transaction are blah, blah, blah. But really, we have a lot of alternative solutions which are quite heavily used, like like Wise, like Revolut, and all this like neo banking stuff, which works really well and it's really cheap. So we use TransferWise, for example, for a lot of transfers as well, whenever we cannot use crypto, and it's really fast and cheap. So I believe that startups in particular who are working on payments, they should forget comparing themselves to incumbents such as banks, but rather they should start comparing themselves to like neobanks and other companies like TransferWise, which are actually quite amazing.
Oh, my personal experience with Wise was not that good. So they I for you know for the payments across the border, they have pretty high fees, and also they do freeze accounts sometimes without
Yeah,
yeah when
that's true.
you
But if you take crypto, if you take like stable coins, they can also blacklist your addresses and so on. So I think with more maturity, this sort of situations we will see more and more in crypto. I think it's sort of inevitable. I'm not taking the anarchist view here on crypto that everything will be anonymized and absolutely not controlled by anyone. I think if we want to bring it to, I would say, like civilized world, then we will have to deal with this things like blacklisting accounts, freezing coins, and all this kind of stuff. I think it's just inevitable. We can still have a sandbox when we play with our exotic rare coins and so on, which are not anyhow um, uh, uh, you know, affected by this. But if we want to deal with the majority of people and companies, I think it should be there.
the watershed is already happening between the compliant companies and non-compliant anarchist or libertarian ones, and
Right.
obviously the absolute majority of the liquidity will be on the compliant side.
Yep. Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you regarding your retention strategies, but I really think that in your business model, naturally the retention for an infrastructural provider is really high because it's quite complicated to switch. And my question is, how complicated is to switch from one infrastructural provider to another, and how do you ensure that Chainstack users stay with you?
Right. So in fact, thanks to the standardization of certain interfaces on blockchain nodes like Ethereum JSON RPC, it's not that hard to switch providers these days. So retention is still an interesting problem for us. I wouldn't say it's easy peasy lemon squeezy type of task for us. So we deal with that by making sure we have the best product again. So we invest a lot into reliability and performance. That are the biggest stickiness points for us as an infrastructure. Nobody wants to work with infrastructure platform that goes down every other day. So we invest a lot into this. And we have amazing support. So we try to build the best support in the industry so that it's always available, so that it's always to point, always useful. It's not just giving you templated replies from knowledge base, same as large B2B SaaS companies are doing nowadays, especially those who has been in the market for a while. So that's we love our users. We want to give them also the spotlight. So whenever anybody is using Chainstack, we are offering them to be highlighted in front of our community, show their numbers, show their use case so that people know more about them. And so we usually do custom stories. If you go on our website, you can find tens of them published with very interesting companies that we'll have to work with. So yeah, these are a few things that we do.
And I'm coming actually to my last question for today. What is the best way for our listeners who are listening to us online or will listen afterwards on multiple podcast platforms? What is the best way to learn about Chainstack and start building on your stack?
So the best way is, of course, go to chainstack.com. You can find all the information there, including all the resources that I mentioned, such as Telegram channel and Discord. server, and all sorts of contacts can be found there. You can also ping me on Twitter. I'm very responsive, so if you have any questions or want to talk about any topics, feel free to DM me on Twitter as well. DMs are open. But yeah, in general for Chainstack, we try to build the most informative website, so that you don't need to go anywhere else to find information. So go to chainstack.com, and you can click a button to sign up for Chainstack. You don't have to have a credit card to sign up. You can just try it out for free. And yeah, let us know the feedback. Always happy to get productive feedback and improve our platform and service.
Awesome. It was the fifth episode of Crypto Subscription Show featuring today Eugene Aseev, the founder and CTO of Chainstack. Thank you very much for listening. You will be able to listen to this podcast on YouTube, on X, and on multiple podcast platforms such as Google Podcast, Amazon, and many, many others. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.
Thank you, Konstantin. Great chat. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.